On to the next topic for this podcast. It's going to be talking about the documentary about the USWNT national team that's come out within the last week called LFG. If you guys are interested in watching it, you can find it on HBO Max if you're curious. They have plans available for as little as $9.99 a month that come with ads. I myself am subscribed to HBO Max because I watch a lot of streaming stuff, and plus they have a crazy library and selection of movies and TV shows. So if you do have to spend $10 and just to watch the USWNT national team documentary, I say go for it because you can watch a whole bunch of other stuff for the month too. But that's neither here nor there. LFG is essentially, it's short for Let's Fucking Go. They play that pretty early on in the documentary. But basically, this documentary was designed to pretty much outline, or at least to me, it was designed to outline and give a deeper look into the equal pay lawsuit between the United States Women's National Team and U.S. Soccer Federation. For those of you who might not be totally up to speed with this situation, this is essentially a short timeline of all of that, dating all the way back to 2019, about a month before the 2019 Women's World Cup. The United States decided to file, I believe, an equal pay lawsuit, an equal pay claim, or I'm trying to remember what the exact legal jargon for it is, but they filed, I think, an injunction against their employer, which was the United States Soccer Federation, on the basis for not being paid as much as their male counterparts, ergo, they equal pay lawsuit. So basically, they go into the Olympics, and the documentary picks up right from when they start their lawsuit. It kind of takes you through a little bit between the moment where they filed the lawsuit up until not too long ago, actually. I think maybe up until 6 months ago, however long it's been since the judge filed his ruling in the lawsuit. So take that for what it's worth. I guess let me back up a little bit. What did I overall think of the documentary? So for me, as a U.S. Women's national team fan and someone who's interested in the situation, I actually really enjoyed the documentary. I learned a lot from it. I came away with knowledge that I hadn't had prior, and I think that in that, the documentary does accomplish its goal to some point. And if you're a U.S. Women's national team fan, or even a WOSO fan in general, I think there's enjoyment to be found in this too, because it kind of takes you through the montage of the 2019 World Cup. It takes you through some of the players and more of a deeper look into their lives and how the lawsuits affected them. And it really gives you a greater appreciation for what the players are fighting for, because, oh my God, it's like, one of the things they talk about is the fact that a lot of players had to give a testimony or had to go through a line of questioning at some point throughout this lawsuit. And players like Megan Rapinoe, Kelly O'Hara, Kristen Press, they'd go and they'd get questioned for 8 hours long. And it's like, wow, literally, can you imagine just sitting in a chair and getting asked questions about a very intense subject for an entire working day? Like, that's insane. It really made me appreciate their fight even more so than I thought I already did, and all the sacrifices they have to make. It was really cool to see the legal team and like their strategy and how they're working throughout this lawsuit as well. I believe I'm trying to remember. I think his name is Jeffrey Kessler. He's one of the lawyers on the team that was litigating for the U.S. Women's national team. I don't even know if litigating is the right term, but just he's a lawyer with the team. Anyways, he I think he had to question Carlos Cordero for like 10 hours or something like that one day in Miami. And it's like, wow, like I almost knowing nothing about law going into this movie, it was kind of cool to see that side of things. I think for if you're a U.S. Women's national team fan who's not really interested in the law stuff, you'll probably get bored at some points in this documentary. But if you're a U.S. Women's national team and fan in general, and you're interested in some legal things, you should have no problems with this movie. And plus, I gotta give it to this movie. What did I really like about it overall, besides the fact that I learned something that gained a greater appreciation for the situation? It never really was too complicated to the point where I felt lost. So, for example, like I said, I am not a legal expert. I have friends who work in law, but I myself am not really into legalities of a lot of things. But this movie did a really good job at showing, hey, this is why the US is filing this lawsuit. These are the arguments that we're making to help them. These are the arguments that the US Soccer Federation is making for themselves. Why? What are the numbers like? How much are the U.S. Women's national team players getting underpaid? What are they actually fighting for? And the one thing that really stood out to me in this movie, just to give you a little bit of perspective as to what I learned, going off of keeping it simple was the fact that I knew how much less money per rate that the U.S. women's national team is getting paid. And I also figured out that the U.S. women's national team was actually fighting for really an equal pay rate. And that's just kind of how I interpreted the situation. They're fighting for an equal pay rate. And I think that small little nugget of information really helped me put it into perspective and just made me appreciate, again, the situation a whole lot more. So what I'm saying is there's a lot to like in this movie. I would recommend it to you if you are a U.S. women's national team fan, or if you're just kind of interested in some legal stuff within this case in general. I think you'll actually find some enjoyment as well. Does it go deeply into the guts of it? Not really, but it'll give you enough and it'll scratch the surface to that particular interest as well. So, but I want to get all sides of this. I want to give you also what I might not have enjoyed about this movie overall either. What I really didn't particularly love about this movie is the fact that it was pretty disjointed. What did I really mean by that? It jumps around quite a bit. You go from the overall grand scheme of the team filing the lawsuit, and then you jump to the World Cup, and it's just kind of montaging through the World Cup, all the players celebrating, having an awesome time. Then it montages to their post World Cup tour, all the TV appearances and whatnot. Then it jumps to different players and their testimonials. It'll jump between players. If I haven't lost you yet, it can be pretty. It can be jarring a little bit when it jumps around that much because you're constantly switching levels from looking at the entire team to looking at a small microcosm of the team to looking at both the entire federation back to looking back at the team again. Then you go to the legal team. Then you go to just the players. It can be very jarring, and it's like, whoa, I got to take a second to breathe because it's like a roller coaster going on. And in that particular aspect, it almost feels like the movie doesn't quite know what it wants to be. To me, I came out of it knowing it wants to be a U.S. Women's National Team documentary about the equal pay lawsuit. But at times, it kind of teeters more on the side of just being a plain U.S. Women's National Team documentary that's fun to watch and really makes it, to me, feel disjointed and a little unbalanced. That's just me looking at the movie for what it is. So I will say this, my friends. Overall, if I had to rate the movie, I'd say it was like a 7 out of 10. I thought it was really good. There was a lot to love if you're looking for more perspective on the equal pay lawsuit. There's a lot to love if you're just a U.S. Women's National Team fan looking to learn more about the players, more about their struggles, more about their triumphs, their successes, all that other good stuff. There's stuff in there for you as well. Who is this movie not for? If you're not part of either of those two previous niches or demographics, probably won't really like this movie overall, so just keep that in mind. This movie was very much designed for a not so wide market, but like I said, there's something to learn for everybody. And feel free to give it a watch and let me know what you think of it. So, my friends, what did you think of the movie? Feel free to comment below and let me know your thoughts. Or rather, what did you learn from LFG? Whatever you think, feel free to jump down in the comments and just let me know your thoughts.